right, Joe Johnson.
We should have arranged that, man. That would have been cool, wouldn't it? Welcome.
Yeah, okay.
Proctor's. It's going to Proctor's.
You need the paper?
I'm good already. Thank you. I wrote it down. Yes. Because multivariate threw me off.
Let me know when you're ready.
So we'll make sure we had coverage. Very good. Biden, that's pretty cool. Huh?
Hey, you were late. You got here on time, you had out a chair.
Snoozy loose.
Ready?
Good enough.
Okay. Call the Finance Committee to order. We're starting this evening with a review of the DSAD 2018 budget. Mr. Salango. I'll have you come on this side because the microphone's over here.
Okay, just me to use it.
Yes, please.
Okay. I'm also here with,
Yep, it's on.
okay.
You won't hear it.
Oh, here, okay. Our Assistant Director, Colleen Moraes, is here, as well as our Board President, Heather Peterson. So you received this information in advance, and once again, we come to the council members every year. A portion of our budget is paid for through the annual assessment for the Downtown Special Assessment District. But as a courtesy, it's important that we provide you with our overall entire budget, which we sent to you in advance. But really what the council is will ultimately be voting on is the first page of the budget that we gave to you. So if you recall, a couple years ago, we outlined a strategy to the council that we are going to be following for the next couple of years. Many years ago, back in 2004, I believe, the DSIC sold the public parking lots to the city, and there was $1 million payment, and then we're receiving a $50,000 annual repayment back to the DSIC, interest-free every year, and we rely on that money to balance our budget every year. But that, unfortunately, or fortunately, or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, that payment is running out in fiscal year 23. So our board adopted a policy several years ago to very small increments start trying to make up for that. So we've been doing a 2% increase little by little year over year to slowly make up for that deficit that we know is coming in our budget. So if you look at page 1, you'll see there that we're continuing to follow that same policy this year. From last year to this year, there's just a 2% increase in the overall assessment, up to $274,666, and then the participation fee, which is the minimum fee that anybody in the district will pay for a year's services. It will just be going up just a little over, just a fraction over $1 a month, from $277 to $290. So that's really the downtown special assessment portion of the budget. Which does amount to about 38% of the entire budget, which is on the third page. And you see how the different revenue streams and the different expenses factor into the budget for 2018. I'm sure there's a few questions. You do see a jump on line 19 with salaries and benefits. That's a jump of 104,000, but again, that's not being taken into consideration by the assessment 2% increase. This is something that what we're doing is, after many years of actually having a reduced staff that we've had since I first came here, we eliminated a marketing position that we had. I think it was 4 years ago now. We've had only 3 people in the office, and with all the positive changes happening in downtown, especially on the outside, we have a robust outside cleaning, maintenance, visual improvements program. So with the expansion of the improvements all throughout the downtown, Lower State Street, Union Street, Erie Boulevard, and then with the expansion of Gateway Plaza over by the community college coming next year, we really are at a point where we need some additional help with that outdoor program. So what this takes into consideration is some additional marketing coordinator, marketing promotions coordinator assistants in the office to help with all the events and promotions that we're doing and the extra ones that we have coming on in the year ahead and beyond. And then we've got, we're taking a half-time labor position up to a full-time position And then we budgeted for what we're calling an outdoor operations director position, which would essentially be the mall manager who will be overseeing that whole operation and making sure that everything the outdoor team is doing is keeping pace with all the needs that are growing in the district. So that's the difference you see on that budget line. And then any of the associated expenses that go along with that, payroll, taxes, benefits, but if there's any other questions specifically, I'd be happy to answer those and follow more on.
Questions? Sounds good. All right, then, for a motion. Okay, and John is not here, so I second. All those in favor? Aye.
Thank you very much. And don't forget, next Saturday is Small Business Saturday.
Yeah.
Come on, small business.
Okay. Next up, we have the Upper Union Street Business Improvement District 2018 budget. And did we have any questions on that? Straightforward. I know that some of the council members asked to see last year's budget, which was sent twice.
Yep.
So questions regarding the budget? Look for a motion on that? I will second it. All those in favor? Aye. And now, it is with great excitement. I asked Mr. Weiland to come to the table to talk to us about the Marchicelli funding for the Oak Street Bridge.
Good evening. So what we have in front of us is the supplemental agreement and funding for the rehabilitation of the Oak Street Bridge. This will be kind of linked to the award of the bid of construction under Public Service and Utilities that we're going to get to later in the evening. So just to recap, we designed, we bid, and now we are awarding the project. The project estimate was a little higher than anticipated, so the city has a little bit larger of a fund that we're covering out of our annual CHIPS allocation, and that was to get us to the bid process. So the city had to put up an additional $200,000 of local funding to get to the engineer's estimate. When the bid was put in, the bid was actually higher than that estimate, but once you are to a bid phase, the DOT then picks up the rest. So to get this project done, there was a give and a take by both the city and the DOT. So we contributed a little bit more to get us to the point where we could bid. The bids came in, and we actually had strong bids. You can see the results when we get to the results section. But the low bid was an extremely reputable firm, Betty and Cringe, that won it. And it was gone through the DOT, which you see here. The DOT issued a letter of concerns and then issued the Schedule A. The Schedule A is the funding allocations, as you see, breakdowns of how this funding is. Just so that you are aware too, if you were to turn to page 2 of 3 of the Schedule A, you'll see a local number there of $457,000. That number is prior to Marchicelli or state funding. So this is a brand new award. The Marchicelli, the 15%, that goes into the state's budget in the next allocation. So this number will come down and be closer to $100,000, not $457,000. But that's what it is today. So, are there any questions about this?
Very exciting.
So, timeframe, we're gonna send this out, or we're gonna approve this, and then what's the next step?
Well, once this goes out, what we are going to do is, we'll, with this adopted and sent, we already have, I believe, construction authorization, so that we can meet. We're going to have a pre-construction meeting as soon as this is back, where we sign contracts, get bonds from Betty and Cringe. We've already issued letters that we're starting the project as soon as possible to Amtrak, try to put them on notice. The contractor has worked with them, they know the contacts, so that they're aware of it. And so what we're going to do is right after you approve it at the council meeting, we'll set up our pre-construction meeting, then we'll get their timeline, and we'll try to work with Amtrak to get them actually out there. The first step is going to be measuring the steel. to make sure that, they have to order it, they have to fabricate it, so they would like to get out there as soon as possible to actually just start measuring and getting some of the distances and some of the pieces that they need. But this is the first step. Go to the council, pre-construction meeting. So everything is, I know this has been one step at a time type of project, but
Gotta cross that bridge when you get there.
Oh, my. Yes, Mr. Riggi.
If all goes well, everything goes according to salt short, what do you look at as start date, target start date?
they'd like to start in January. And they're anticipating that the repairs would take 4 months. The issue at hand is going to be, like I said, is going to be Amtrak. There's a very large demand on Amtrak right now with the new rail station. So we have to share resources as they build the new rail station. So Amtrak's already, informed me about that we're going to be having to share personnel and do some coordination, which I'm not above. I'll work with them. I'll work with the contract, work with the railroad, but we're at their when it comes to working on the tracks. So, but Betty and Cringe, they don't, this is a rehab project, this is not a new bridge. They'd like to get out there as soon as possible once the steel is arrived and made, and they're saying, we've done with it in 4 months with everything done, as long as we get the flag.
Will a lot of this be prefabbed off-site?
Yep, yeah, that's the purpose of going in, measuring, get all the measurements, and when they come, it's putting it together.
Other questions? And the wait with Amtrak is because we actually always have to have flaggers on the
Yeah.
track while they're doing work, right?
Whenever you're within a proximity of the railroad envelope, you need to have flaggers out there, yeah, and there's no,
Just for clarification,
Yes.
so people understand.
yep. So there is some work we can do without flaggers, but a lot of work is going to require.
Any other questions? I'll ask for a motion on this.
So,
I will surely second it. All those in favor? Aye. Great, thank you. Just a placeholder on the agenda for an update on the contract negotiations for AFSCME, but I assume that has to be done in executive session, Mayor?
I don't know what the questions are gonna be.
Just where we are in the process, when the next meeting is, how close we are to wrapping this up, those kinds of things. So I don't know if that's executive session information or,
When the next meeting is, I believe it's being set for, labor management. Actual negotiations is set for sometime early in December.
okay. Is there any kind of a time frame on when we think that we can
I always look
be
forward
back in
to
contract?
resolving all the contract negotiations at every meeting. Sometimes it doesn't quite.
Well, they had mentioned that the other night that the last, I think they said 2 meetings had been canceled. So I just-
Been rescheduled, and if there is an agreement in place that there won't be any public comment on the negotiations
Right,
prior
so,
to a tentative agreement.
right, so are there things you can update us on in executive session
If the
then?
council wants more detail, the appropriate form.
Yep, okay. So then I will recess the finance, or I'll ask for a motion to recess the finance committee. Second, all those in favor? Aye. Okay.
I'd like to open up, service and utilities, Mr. Muller.
So related to what we were just talking about, this is the award of contract to Betty and Cringe. As you can see on page 8 of 8, we received 3 bids for this work. 3 bids from 3 of the most established bridge companies in the area: Tioga Construction, Harrison Burroughs, Betty and Cringe. The low bid, 175, was viewed as to be an acceptable bid, and that's what we're putting forward.
Not sure they have that in their I don't have it in there.
Oh,
I don't think they had the
I
other form in their
apologize.
package.
so this was, I'm sorry. A lot of this came fruition on Friday. So I can forward it on.
Yes.
Yep.
So I assume, because we don't have the bids in front of us, but we're taking the lowest bid, or?
Lowest bid, it's the lowest bid, like I say, our engineer did check it, it was higher than the engineer's estimate by approximately $200,000. However, all of the bids were in range, the low bid was 175, the second bid was 177, the third bid was 1.9. And like I said, all three companies that did bid, they are some of the largest, most established bridge companies in the area. They do the largest bridge work. So, you know, on reputation, on the tightness of the bids, on how the disbursement was, our consultant put together. On federal aid jobs, I didn't, you know, put this in your packet, but there are, you know, there's a package that you have to send to the DOT concurrence. That letter of concurrence comes back to state that they went through it and they agreed with the recommendation from the consultant. So that's all taken, and that has to happen before they'll issue you the authorization to proceed. So, like I said, we've already talked with the project manager. We've already submitted the forms to Amtrak, alerting them to starting. So.
Any other questions? Right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, elimination of the GE pedestrian bridge.
Discussion of
Discussion, of the elimination of the GE.
so.
Let's discuss.
Yeah. So another federal aid project that the city received was for the preservation of the two GE pedestrian bridges. The city went into this with the thought of preserving these two bridges, secured $1.1 million in federal funding to preserve these two bridges. We hired MJ Engineering to study the bridges, to put together an engineer report. The engineer report came back and stated that bridges are out of compliance in a lot of standards that are current. They don't meet ADA, they do not meet modern clearances, they have a lot of deficiencies that would be grandfathered in because they are an existing structure. However, to bring the bridges up to even current code with regards to replacing bearings, replacing steel, working on the joints, placing the fence, all those things to bring it up to where you can, to passable condition, that was the cost, was estimated around $3 million. Once that cost was determined, I reached out to Metroplex to ask if there had contacts at SCCC and General Electric, two entities that predominantly would use the bridge. Mr. Gillen did give me those contacts and help foster those contacts. Representative SCCC, as you see here in the comment, the lone comment from SCCC, their comment was that SCCC does not support preservation of those bridges. They view the bridges as a liability. And General Electric, their management that we spoke with, facilities management, did not see a need to keep those bridges. However, we did, as you say, make it a public notice 2 times in the paper, and I did receive, not from the facility staff at General Electric, but I did receive over 50 emails from employees at General Electric stating that they do use these bridges for recreational purposes. And members of them did come to the public meeting and discuss that they do like to use these bridges because it allows them to get onto the Mohawk Hudson Bike Trail without going onto any public thoroughfares. They go over the bridges, cut through the SCC parking lot, and they're on the trail. So there's no real interaction with the city. We did check, none of the users of the trail at the time at this meeting were city residents. That was one thing that we were trying to find out, was who's city residents. One of the things that I did point out was that the predominant use of this bridges was to leave the city, not engage in the city so much. As you can see in one of the detour slides that we had, is that, you know, those bridges are good, but they bring you to the outskirts of the city. And the predominant use was to get onto the trail. So, once again, one of the things that has changed in this era of fiscal constraint is that the DOT no longer inspects pedestrian bridges. They used to be inspected similar to the Oak Street Bridge or the Kings Road Bridge biannually. They are no longer inspected, so the city now has to absorb the cost of inspecting the bridges. And we also, you know, in certain cases, we have to now pay for these bridges. So, you know, the $3 million, we do have $1 million. We could put the $1 million into the bridges. We can do that. That is preservation. We can extend the life of the bridges in some way with the $1 million, you bear the central upgrade. You can do the bearings, you can, caulk the joints, you can do some of the bare minimum things. We're not going to extend the life of that bridge beyond 10 years. So myself or a counterpart will be back here in 10 years talking to yourselves or your counterparts saying the same thing, is that bridge is in this condition and we need to do something.
Yes.
There's another bridge in place that we're leaving there, though, correct? What was voiced as, what concerns do people have using that pedestrian bridge versus the one that we're looking to possibly remove?
The opinion at the public meeting with that pedestrian bridge was tear it down. If you're going to remove these two bridges, you might as well remove that.
Take that.
Because they're saying is that pedestrian bridge suffers from what all pedestrian bridges. So there was the idea at one point, and it's possibly not dead, but it's just always out there, a pedestrian bridge over Erie Boulevard. All right, the issue is that to go to 40 feet over Erie Boulevard, you have to go 30 feet up, 40 feet over, 30 feet down. And so, is everyone coming? No, I go 40. It's the same thing with that. People say that they would rather see us, GE just put in a new entrance, they just invested significant money into their new Edison Ave entrance. They would rather see us modify the signal at that entrance and put a crosswalk they think that would get used more than the bridge. Once again though, to remove that bridge, probably upwards of $500,000, which we don't currently have. This is, the federal government has, put up money to say that we'll take these down. So even if they say take that bridge down, it's still a cost to the city to take it down. But they didn't think it was a useful thing. The detour that we had used that bridge. It used that bridge, used the crossing at Erie Boulevard, and it used South Church Street to do that. It was, the detour difference was 400 feet.
The statue.
So
Actually before that.
the Edison,
Over the club.
You're thinking of South Ferry.
Oh, that's right, yeah, that's the one.
It's the one by it's a gas
The
station.
gas station.
The gas station.
Yep, it's right there.
so that's being recommended to stay?
What
Or
is?
The near Edison Avenue, that's not going to be part of the funding to tear that down?
That is not eligible for
That's
funding.
not eligible.
It is over a local road, it's not over I-890. So the only reason that those two pedestrian bridges that we're talking about are eligible for highway funding is because they're over a highway. The third bridge is over a local road, so that is our bridge. So every dollar that's spent inspecting or dealing with that third bridge is city.
So,
Any other questions, Mr.?
Well, I think the consensus there, those people that were there, 7 or 8 or 9 people maybe, they were pretty well resigned to the fact that the bridge,
coming down.
they're coming down. They didn't put up I could see there wasn't a big pushback because it made sense to them, the reasons for the city to look to take those down. That's what I took out of their comments and the way they were speaking at the end of that. So I would say, and I'm glad you asked the question, how many of you live in the city? And no laser. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
The other point of this is I've already had discussions with Metroplex about, one of the comments that was made is if the bridges were to come down, they would like to see the detour enhanced. South Church right now is one of the remaining streets downtown that has not seen any improvements. It's the church that is between the $15 million Mill Lane Art District and the $1.5 million Gateway Plaza. So Metroplex and I have been talking about possibly making that improvement, connecting the two, and incorporating into that LED lighting, actual sidewalk path that is acceptable for jogging, for biking, and making that detour actual, because it is a better investment for the city, for Metroplex to put our money into that than to actually put it into the bridges. Because, everyone can use that road, everyone can benefit from the lighting upgrades, the street upgrades, sidewalks. The streets are in very rough shape, that particular corridor is in pretty rough shape. So, talking with them, they would rather us, and they would partner with us to help us put that together, because they think that that's a better investment. And that was what came from the GEs. They said, well, if these were to come down, we'd really like to see the detour in place. So if your resolution is in support of the removal of these bridges. I will go back to the DOT and see if I can extend the project, because we have to complete these things within federal fiscal years. Maybe I can move it out a federal fiscal year, monitor the bridge, allow people to use it for their purposes while we put the detour in place. But that's still a conversation. I don't know that the timeline of it, because it would have to happen possibly next year. But that was the main comment, was that the detour was unacceptable as it is right now, because it's such a poor corridor.
And Club Illusion's coming down too, right?
I've heard that, but that is not.
That's,
That's in the works right now, but
Yeah.
it's happening.
And I mean, the big thing was, and that's what I repeated, was one of the comments, I don't know if you had time to go through all 50, was that, you know, a couple of the comments were that if the city were to remove the bridges, it would show the employees of GE that we don't care about. And I think that is a reach, you know, to say that. You know, I'm thinking that we've already talked with them. I've already engaged in a couple of them. Your latest email, the big font, is one of their most, he was vocal, he was at the meeting. He's gonna form possibly a small group. We're gonna work with them when we build the detour. We talked about that, trying to work with them on, you know, painting the Old Book Road so they can get to the path, so they can, you know, do all the things they want to do and working with them, because I don't think it's about that. You know, this is about fiscal constraint and, you know, use and a lot of things. And now that, you know, it didn't happen 50 years ago, bridges were built.
Yeah. Very true. Very good.
So, what's our next step?
What you would want to adopt is a resolution of the support for the elimination of the pedestrian bridges. It would be written and put together much similar. This is almost identical to the resolution for the closure of the Yates Tunnel. Of the tunnel between the Watch Street and Grout Park.
Steinmetz.
Steinmetz, yeah, Watch Street and Grout Park.
Right.
But it would be identical to that. They want, because in this, we also would be closing the twin tunnel that was closed before. Because the bridges are, but there is a tunnel. And the tunnel is part of the issue too.
yeah.
That's not
It's a
used.
big issue.
What's that?
They don't use it.
Tunnel, yes, it has to be used.
To get to the bridge.
To get to the bridge, you have to go to the
The
tunnel?
bridges go to the tunnels, yeah.
You don't know you're sitting, huh?
Just saying, I saw a picture of it, and I was like, that's used? Kind of scary.
It is.
Okay, so, do we want to move forward with that resolution?
Yeah,
Okay. I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Alrighty.
Very good.
Thank you, Mr. Wallen.
Thank you.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. We're adjourned.
All right, I'm going to call to order government operations. First up, we have a ceremonial resolution for St. Luke's Church. Mr. Ricky?
Yeah, we all got an invitation this Sunday. I don't know how many have been by there or not, but it's quite a job they did there in a
Nice
short
facility.
time. It's beautiful. And it matches, I'm really struck by how it matches the architecture of the church. It looks like it was there as long as the church was, so it's a great job. And I think it'd be a good idea to recognize their hard work. They raised a lot of money to do that, but done in real timely fashion, so I think it's a good idea. I talked to Peg Anderton, she'll have some people there on the 27th to accept us. I'd like to see this.
Very good.
I'll move it.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Thank you.
So, background to our discussion on convenience stores, to frame it for the public. There's a couple different issues at hand. One is the concern of the number of convenience stores opening in our neighborhoods. And the other is around tobacco sales within a close proximity of our schools. So in our discussions of a possible moratorium on convenience stores, while we figured this out, we landed on also considering limiting the number of tobacco sellers in the city of Schenectady. So we talked 2 weeks ago about bringing our best ideas to the table. I know that we had talked about, not within 1,000 feet of our schools, but grandfathering in any existing stores that are selling tobacco in that area now. And then my other thought in having this discussion is, we know the convenience store association, for lack of a specific name, is very concerned. And to be honest, you have to think about the fact that included in under convenience stores are Stewart's, are Cumberland Farms, businesses of that nature. So my idea, and I asked Corporation Counsel about this the other day, I don't know if you had a chance to look into it, but could we base it on number of employees so that we have X number of businesses under this many employees and no cap on businesses over X number of employees. Right now we have 97 tobacco sale convenience stores in the city of Schenectady. They look at having no more than 1 per 1,000. Right now we're actually a little bit under that. We're about 0.75 per 1,000 people, residents. So just looking for everyone's ideas as we continue to discuss this. I'm sorry, Mrs. Wilson,
Is that possible to put employees in as far as the number of employees if they're franchised? Because I don't think that will,
Shorter answer is, I don't know. The
Okay.
city has broad discretion to regulate a lot of businesses. I haven't seen anyone that does it in that way. If we were gonna do something like that, what I wanna know is what is the number of employees that you're setting it at, and how we connect that number of employees to whatever the problem is that you're looking to solve with the regulations. And then once I have that information, we can evaluate it.
Ms. Porterfield.
Yeah, so my question really is about your suggestion. Is the suggestion basically that what it boils down to is a store like Stewart's, which will more likely than not have a number of employees versus a mom and pop operation which has 1 or 2? So that is, my concern with that is that whether that's the intent or not, it really ends up targeting smaller owned businesses. So that would, I would have concerns regarding that, because it ultimately means that smaller businesses are the ones who end up not being able to, not that I'm advocating sale of tobacco by anyone, but it targets a small business owner. So that would concern me, even if we can do it.
Right. Well, the idea was born from the fact that the real reason we're looking at this is to get a better handle and control on all of the small corner stores in our neighborhoods where there'll be 3 in 1 block, or 3 within 2 blocks, or whatever the case may be. So in a way, it targets small business on purpose. Now, that might not be where we want to go with it, but that was where the idea was born of. Okay, if we're looking to limit the number of convenience stores that have been right in our residential neighborhoods, would that be helpful? Maybe not. I don't know. I'm happy to hear everybody else's ideas too.
And I would like to see us limit the number of small convenience stores, because right now, 3 in 1 block is ridiculous. And not that I want, then maybe they could look someplace else in the city, because there's some neighborhoods that have almost no convenience stores. And there's other, I'm sure if we mapped it out, we'd see that the major concentration of convenience stores are in certain neighborhoods. So limiting it in that way, so that there's not such a concentration and saturation, I'm comfortable with. But that to me is not the same as saying that within this, within so many feet of a school, if you're a Stewart's or a Cumberland Farms or whatever, you can't, you can basically be there, but if you're, ABC convenience store, that you can't. So
2 different issues. No one could sell tobacco within 1,000 feet of the school.
Okay.
Right.
So
The other issue is just
So I'm not sure if there's another way for us to but other places have done it where they limit how many convenience stores. So I think that we need to, best, in my opinion, best of all, the best solution is to figure out how we do that as opposed to just saying, based on the number of employees. Because again,
I haven't seen anything out there that's based on neighborhood. But there's a lot of legislation now based on tobacco sales. Mr. Agee, I'm sorry, you had a question?
You just brought up some kind of piqued my curiosity. What defines a school as far as that you can't have, what I'm thinking is the Stewart's in Bellevue, that's certainly closer to 1,000 feet to the Early Childhood Development Center. There's
And
no
those would be
question about
grandfathered
that.
in. Those would be grandfathered in. Any store that exists right now would be
It
grandfathered
didn't
in.
exist there.
It would
was
be
just built.
new. I'm saying, once this legislation passes,
Oh, but I
any
thought
store that
I thought
exists-
that was already here.
No.
Okay, that's.
No. No. That's one part of this discussion. There's kind of two parts to it. Anybody else have any recommendations or suggestions? Ms. Gilligan?
My thought is, we need to come about how to limit the actual convenience stores, the high concentrations, and I don't know if using tobacco sales is the right avenue to go. We need to rethink that.
Okay. Just born out of discussion that we had at the table prior, so that's not the only answer, but we've been talking about this for quite some time, so everybody was supposed to come loaded with loaded with ideas for tonight, but I'm not getting the impression anyone has any strong feelings about going forward with this.
It's really hard to,
Yeah.
to kind of snuff on, small enterprise, that's the American dream for somebody to own their own business. So I understand the issue with it. It seems like we're going around the back door and the front door and everything. I guess we have to enforce laws with the stores that already are there. That's what has to be done. We have to bring the hammer down on these people that there's other activity going on in these stores other than selling soda, beer, milk, bread, cigarettes. So I think that's really the answer that we're looking for. We have to have stronger enforcement. That's what we need. So we need to up our police force. Do we have to have dedicated patrols for these things? Maybe that's what we need. But to tell somebody you can't operate a business, that's kind of a tough thing to do. That's the American dream, small business. That's what it is. And as far as being discriminatory with cigarette sales or number of people that work there, I understand the spirit of it, but it's discriminatory is what it is. There's no other word to put on it. Who can operate, who can't operate. Big get bigger and small get smaller. That's what happens in that area. But I think what we need is to enforce, the rules of the problems that we're having in these convenience stores. And there's many of them, and that has to happen.
Well, and I think that Mr. Falatico, at Mr. Mutaveran's request, gave us a report that the city is actively pursuing that type of, and if there's not, general support from the council on this, it really wasn't my thing. It's been this moratorium that we've talked about over and over and over in the last 6 years, of that how can we regulate this? So every time we get to this point, we also realize that, it's Swiss cheese, right? So I'm happy to not discuss it in the future if nobody feels, strongly about it. It will come up again because we'll have some sort of an issue with small convenience stores, and then we'll want to figure out how to limit them or put a moratorium on them. But until it comes up again, we'll sit on it. Ms. Porterfield.
and I just want to be clear, the mayor, you said that before you sit down and talk with the business owners. Is this prior to, like, if somebody wants to open a store next week, whenever, you talk with the business owners prior to them actually
In the
opening?
last 6 months, a little bit longer, before we grant the final certificate of use, I meet with them, police chief, fire chief, representative of corporation council, sit down, tell them we want to be successful, we want them to work well in the community, we want to be here to support them. they gotta play by the rules. And if they don't play by the rules, that they're gonna feel the full force, police enforcement, code enforcement, whatever administrative controls that we can bring to bear on what's considered improper or negative conduct.
And in that conversation, are there specifics, like the number of police calls or, you know?
We go over those, some of them have been new, so that there is not a historical level of activity at some of these sites.
I didn't mean that. Did I mean that, I mean, when you were saying that there were specific things that you'd be looking at, are you mentioning the fact that it affects
Yes,
the
police calls, in fact, they're given a copy of the code which lists the number of whole series of things that send you that so you can see what they're getting. Again, where we will look for enforcement if they don't comply.
Mm-hmm.
And but again, the overriding message is I want them to be successful.
Sure.
And to do that, they've got to have some responsibility in terms of maintaining the premises, some of the area around it. We want to work with them to make sure that happens. And if there are outside forces that may come into their business or around their business, I want them to see the police chief, code enforcement as an asset to work with them to eliminate those problems.
Thank you. And I would be interested in seeing, I mean, I guess all of us, I'm not sure, would be interested in seeing exactly what the new businesses are. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Next is the Yates rebuild project. A bunch of us met with the developers and Rich Hominick from MHA last week, and they asked for, they said a resolution of support would be helpful. The letter that is in your packet they supplied, I've asked legal to redraft it as a resolution, now as a letter from me, resolution from the entire council. So they're working on that. I know that Ms. Porterfield was out of town, but you are part of the board, correct? So you're, or,
They're calling it the core team.
okay, so you're already familiar with the project, and I'm not sure if Mr. Mutaviran has questions, but we can certainly handle those or set up a meeting for him if he has any before the meeting. So just looking for a motion on that, unless he has any questions. Moved by Ms. Lucinda, seconded by Mr. Palomini. I'm sorry, did you have a question?
Well, no, I didn't have a question. I just wanted to, you know, because I do know about the project, but I think it's really exciting that this redevelopment's going to happen, and the input that from the residents that, you know, that I've encountered at the meetings I've been at, they're excited. And more, I think a large part of it is the fact that they're being informed as it goes along. It's not a project that just happens and then, you know, they're like, you know, you have to move next week. So I think part of the way that they've gone about this, that SMHA is handling this along with the developers, is goes a long way to get the community support that they've gotten. And so I know it's going to be a long-term project. It won't be done in a year, but I think once it's done with, you know, all the things that they're going to be doing, it's going to be a huge improvement to that part of the city. So I'm excited to see it happen. Very, you know, pleased to see it move forward and glad to be a part of that. So,
Looks great.
yeah, thank you.
All right, so all those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Anything else to come before government operations?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. I'll call to order public safety, and we have a whole bunch of grants. I'll move things around too, so you can just keep going through all of the, because they're kind of split up.
We'll prepare for that.
So this is the body-worn camera grant.
This one, I forwarded paperwork, and mainly the budget to everyone. This is a little different than budget grants that come for. What I mean by that, there is a match on this one. I just want to explain it. The police department put in for the body worn camera grant several months ago. Received notification we received grants. There's 165,000 grant funds that we received. There is a match, but the match is diverted in different ways. A lot of things that we're already paying for, and such that part of my salary is in there because as we implement this grant, this is all allowable charges to the match. Part of one of the lieutenants in the police department's in there. It's all for implementation of the whole program, from writing the policies to, getting equipment, testing equipment. There's a test phase here that we have for months just to test different equipment and see what is best for the department. There's also a requirement that 2 high-level administrative people, personnel go down to Washington to really kind of give you the best practices and help you work through the foils associated with this, the subpoenas that are associated with this. Body worn cameras are, I think, a way of the future, but they are a heavy lift as far as the police department is concerned, just because of those things. The foils and subpoenas alone are going to be very taxing over time. As the program first rolls out, I don't think it will be. I'm just kind of making everybody aware of it. It is a process that we have to take on. But with that said, it's doable. It's something that we believe in, and we think for the department and the city would be a good program. We want to walk before we run. I don't want to sit here today and say that if we pass this acceptance of the grants, that we can implement it in a month or two's time. It's going to take several months. I personally project 6 to 9 months. Just alone, the meeting I'm talking about in Washington wouldn't be until March or April. But again, we can gear up for that as far as testing and so forth. So with that, I also provided, the budget end of it as far as what the implementation on the city is. We, in anticipation of this grant, you might remember through the budget process, have put some money, allocated some money for the servers, a portion of that. So we're not here today saying we have to increase our budget. We're here to say that 2019, most likely we'll have increase our budget based upon this, but I don't want to scare anyone, but at the same time, make it real. So with that, any questions, fire away.
Takes a lot to scare us,
Now, is this just a grant we're applying for, or do we know we will get this grant?
We know we have it. We submitted an application again. It's been a long process, several months ago, late spring, early summer, and the whole process took a while. We went back and forth with the grant administration, the DJ at Bureau of Justice, awarding of the grant, and they awarded the grant based upon our application.
Questions, Mr. Crozier?
Yeah, and Madam Chair, and if I may, just before we continue, if I could just welcome for the first meeting, our Public Safety Commissioner, the Honorable, I still know him as Judge, Michael Idens here, so thank you, Commissioner, for being here. I appreciate that. So my question to you, are we working with other municipalities that already have the body cameras in place, like such as the City of Albany, who have just gone on to that?
We've had general conversations, but I wouldn't say we're working with them right now. They're working out their own bugs. I'm not sure what they actually purchased. It's common. There's a lot of vendors out there now for body-worn cameras. There's a lot of associated things. Like everything's a cloud nowadays. We as an organization sat down and said, this is early on before we did the application. We can't afford a cloud. The cloud is actually very expensive. So we sat down with our IT people. There's a lot of thought that went into this grant. I just don't want to think just decide one day to do this because, like I said, it's a heavy lift. But what we did was we sat down with IT people and Juan, John Cuccio, and in the city with our department, and how can we support this, best support it, because the cloud was tens and tens of thousands of dollars every year, recurring costs. Server costs have come way down nowadays, and I'm not an IT person, I just tell you a little bit what I know, but we come up with a price that we thought was adequate. Now, this is a startup price, doesn't mean as time goes on, we're not going to add on to these servers, because when you download video, again, not being an IT person, there's a lot of data there that we have to maintain, and how long we have to maintain it for is part of the policy that we write. And I think it's future discussion with this, council, what we want to set as a city for that, because if there's the FOIL laws, again, I might be kind of not doing this justice, but I don't think they're saying you have to help maintain for 3 years, you have to maintain for 5 years. You don't, unless it's part of a criminal investigation, then it gets attached to that investigation. So we're going to have a backup server, so everything we download. We do this now with our neighborhood cameras. Anything associated with the case, we download to a separate server. So we maintain that separate server so we can hold it indefinitely. And depending on the case, so if it's a homicide case, it's 25 to 65 years, depending on certain circumstances. And with data now, it's kind of new to the whole detention process. So right now, they say indefinitely a lot of data. If we hold it electronically, but it's not the case in this yet. Just kind of letting you know.
Very good.
Other questions? Still motion?
Yes, I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mr. Crozier, I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, on to the BJA Bulletproof Vest Partnership Grant.
This is an annual grant we receive, based upon how many bulletproof vest, we plan purchases in 2018. And so when we submit our budget to the city council for, some of the equipment costs that we have, we anticipate receiving some of these funds as matching funds. And this year we ordered 14, glasses, not enough hands, 14,375. Again, this is used as part of our match of monies already allocated in our 2018 budget. And we have a 5-year replacement policy with the department to replace all officers' vests every 5 years. And this is just part of the cycle.
Questions?
Make the motion.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
And the GIVE research supplement. It's actually the first thing in the packet.
I request a podium up here sometime.
There you go.
To give supplemental, we've received we've been very fortunate over the last 12, 14 years to receive a GIVE, what used to be Impact, our grant. This year they came out with a supplemental grant and asked for additional items in there that is more towards research, more towards, it's not law enforcement driven in a way that we're gonna go out and police it this way. This year this is the first time they've offered this type of grant, but this is like an attachment to our grant application. And this is a supplemental award for basically Fin Institute. Yeah, my glasses on in a second. But we have a Schenectady Strong program, which basically brings in people on probation, parole, and we have a really kind of meet and greet, if you will, and talk to them and say, listen, you got to change your ways. We're going to be enforcing it. If it's gang related, and I spelled it out in the stuff I gave you. But if you're associated with a gang or you come up with that and something happens and we need to have a shooting in that area, we're going to come to grab you because they're on parole, probation. We have a little bit more leverage over them. This research will be, kind of help us implement better policies and or evaluate what we've done. So there's no match on it. Favorite thing to say when I'm here. And so it's just, again, this is the first year we have it. Feel fortunate to receive it.
Questions?
Motion.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you.
Next.
And we put it up next. County funding of directed patrol unit.
Yes, we wanted to start the discussion on this, that we've been working on it for a little bit over, about 2 months now. Started with the discussion ourselves, and we've been moving forward with it. And the discussion revolves around the county supplementing police departments within the county with additional officers who will form a countywide task force to combat violent crime. And it all centers around the county having the highest violent crime rate in the state. And the idea is going to be for the sheriff and the police department to supply the most officers, and then each department within the county to offer up an officer if they can. And the number of officers that we're looking to add would be 6 officers, 2 supervisors and 4 officers, so that makes 6. It would be fully reimbursed by the county through the salaries and fringe benefits. So it's budget neutral. The 5-year, the discussion right now revolves around a 5-year commitment by the county to this. And they would be, again, preliminary discussions are that they'd be operating out of the city under the direction of an inspector within the sheriff's department and 2 supervisors that are Schenectady police officers to help drive the task force. There's also a need for an analyst, and that analyst would come from the city and again be reimbursed fully for salary and fringes by the county. The analyst would use data-driven analytics to decide where the need is for the task force to address the violent crime. So the reason I wanted to come here and discuss it with members of the council is that as we progress forward, I've already submitted numbers for what we will be searching for reimbursement. Once we get the approval from the county that those numbers are okay, and we move forward towards an MOU, that I could present to the council. I wanted to at least start the discussion and answer any questions that I could bring back to them, should you have any.
Questions, Ms. Porterfield?
So, you said that there would be six, we would supply six staff people to this, officers to this, 2 supervisors and 4 officers. How would they come from the current that we have?
I'd be looking to add those additional officers. So what we would do is we would hire 6, and we would we would then bid out the job, so senior bidders would go there. And the discussion right now is for us to get reimbursed for the salary of those officers that we sent.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that it wouldn't impact our existing staff to take away to put towards this. So 6 new hires.
Correct, and we've already thought about that. It would be we'd move in a step process, so we would put 6 on the task force. It may be 3 and 3 to lessen the impact, and it wouldn't start until after the first year, which we have officers in the academy now that are getting out. So we're doing it in a way that we won't impact current staffing.
Oh, right.
Thank you.
Other questions? Ms. Zaluski-Wilson?
So you're gonna hire more? On top of what, like you have 6 coming on, we're still gonna have an additional number joining again next year.
That would be the plan.
Okay.
Once we get the approval from the county, I will then come back here and ask for that.
Okay.
Other questions?
So, yeah.
Mr. President?
So, Chief, and I'm sorry, Mr. Riggi, is there going to be any prevention in this, Chief? I mean, I know we're talking about this is all on the back end, where the criminal activity is, but is there any way we can, is there any thoughts of working a prevention program into it, such as more interaction with our communities, our neighborhoods, and of course our youth as well?
Yes, part of the plan is to utilize the analysts to not only identify hotspots within the county, but also to make recommendations to the task force on how to address them. Certainly, law enforcement of laws is going to be one, arresting people if needed, but they're also going to go in there with different means of enforcement. They could do anything along the lines of changing the environment, basically assess the area for SEPTED models. There's also, we're going to be in discussion with some groups in some organizations that could go in there with outreach workers and address an area either before or after an enforcement to essentially, if an area has been identified and it's safe to send outreach workers in there, we'll do that to see if we find services for the individuals before we actually go in there and do enforcement.
Very good, I think it's important.
Mr. Riggi, did you have a question?
Yes, just a quick question. Since this is a 5-year pilot, at the end of the 5 years, if for some reason this doesn't work out, we don't get reimbursed, then are we absorbing those positions back since you're hired there's going to be 6 new hires? Or is that just going to add to our staffing, since I don't know what our staffing level is right now? We usually are under, so I don't know what your thoughts are.
It's a 5-year commitment right now. Our goal is to put ourselves out of business. So essentially, in 5 years, violent crime is 0, so we don't need it. But to realistically answer your question is, as we approach that 5-year mark, we have to make the decision. If the county decided we didn't need it, we'd have to eliminate those jobs or make a decision whether we wanted to keep them. And it's not too concerning with me, because within the next 5 years, we're going to have more than 6 retirements.
Right. That's not possible.
Any other questions?
Chief's not talking about me, is he?
You're going to give that incentive for you. Incentive for
No
the
need any action
citizens.
tonight, we're waiting on the county, just starting the discussion, I would assume you're open.
And
Any questions?
Great, well, thank you.
Thank you.
And Jack Link.
That could be a long answer.
Okay. And next on the agenda is the review of the draft towing contract RFP. I'll hand it over to Mr. Palatico.
It's not enough. Take it down.
You have one over here?
Oh, that's it.
Take care.
Yours is coming this way.
I thought you had two.
No,
Maybe you
I
don't.
just have 2, sorry.
Oh,
didn't-
Yep.
Yeah, it
Sorry.
goes down.
It was
Mobile
really
sign.
good.
He knows what he's saying.
Okay.
Did you want to walk us through changes or?
Yeah, real briefly, the biggest change that we made to this is having discussions internally. What we would like to change it to is a request for qualifications instead of a request for proposals. Because in this case, we're not really looking for proposals because the cost per tow is set. Everything is pretty much the same, so nobody's gonna come in with something drastically different than anyone else. So the idea is put out there, what you can charge, how payment has to be made, what procedures you have to follow, and see how many companies there are that will say, I can meet these qualifications. And then review those qualifications to make sure they're right, and then we'll know we have 2, 3, 5, 10, however many qualified tow operators in the city. And that'll give the police department flexibility to decide how they want to proceed and come to the mayor and the council with a proposal. Because if there's 2, maybe what we're doing right now is the best thing. But if we find out we have 5 groups, maybe they'll tweak some of their procedures, or maybe they'll come back and say, we think we should just take the 2 best for X, Y, Z reason.
And the main part of this is also to get the towing companies to sign on to collecting the revenues and reimbursing the city because we've had that legislation in place for like 3.5 years, but, right?
Yeah,
I mean, that's our main goal.
Yeah, this requires them to give us bi-weekly logs of whatever tows they do, provide us the money monthly to do the record keeping the way we in the police department want them to.
And they reimburse us though.
Yeah, but so we know what they're getting in, so
Yeah.
we know what to expect.
And when do we expect this to go out?
I would say that, if you want time to review it and give feedback first, the mayor's, once you tell him you're okay with it, then it's on his schedule.
So we'll put it on for 2 weeks and then they can go out from there. Or everybody can review it and get back to the mayor personally. I don't know we don't have to pass anything, right? Because it is what it is, so.
Yeah, there's nothing fast. The idea was just to make sure everyone is happy with what we're putting out, so we don't run into a situation afterwards where there are questions about why we're in a certain way.
So it's fair to say, if you have concerns, get in touch with the mayor this week, otherwise it's going out.
That's what you want. If you want to put it on for 2 weeks, come back, say we're in agreement, then we'll pick a date to send it out. And if there's some things, we put it out for such a period of time, receive proposals back in. Some time to do the actual evaluation and what to do the award.
It's been lingering so long. Ms. Lucy-Lizdis, did you have a question?
Yeah, I haven't read through this obviously, but within there's going to be reports mandated by the tow companies back to the police department, to the finance department. Who gets the report back?
Both of them should be getting it back.
Okay.
The police department has the most interactions with them. The finance department is certainly more involved when they're sending the money our way.
And the time frame that are they gonna send reimbursement monies every 2 weeks or
I believe it says in there monthly. they'll be
Monthly?
sending
I just
reimbursement.
looked, it said monthly,
monthly?
every 2 weeks is 2.
Any other questions? All right, we'll put it back on for 2 weeks, make sure everybody's comfortable. If you refer back to the email that I forwarded to the council also, the clerk had done some great work to break apart all of the different sections of the RFP. And we did offer, at that time, our recommendations. So if you want to cross-check it or see the various components that are involved, it's an easy way to do it. All right, very good. Is there anything else to come before public safety? Ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, I'll call to order Health and Recreation. There's 3 items on the agenda. The first is a ceremonial resolution which would recognize Rashea Bobbitt, the young lady who's a finalist in the upcoming 2018 Miss New York pageant. ceremony resolution just to recognize, this young lady for the things she's doing and that she's a finalist. And just have her come in and it's just to show support from the city for her as a city resident.
I'll move.
I'll second. All those in favor? Okay. We have Mr. Gardner here to do our quarterly affirmative action report.
Good evening, everyone. Again, thanks for the opportunity to come in and talk to you again. On the first section, just to summarize the projects that we currently have out and where we are. I think we're sort of coming full circle and things are starting to progress in a positive manner. I'm very, very happy cooperation together from all departments, prison engineering, Paul, ODS, and water department, as well as the finance department. So things are starting to go in a very positive direction. What we see here is pretty much most of the projects that have already been in force, and we're starting to clear those out, and we're starting to see some improvement as we move forward. As I move into this, I just wanted to say that initially it was a challenge with getting the affirmative report, the MWBE utilization plans, and to comply with what the requirements were. Initially we were getting some resistance, and then by working more effectively with all departments, we were able to get their attention. At some point, it came to, maybe holding, payment requests until they came into compliance with the case may attend. But again, we're making some good significant improvements there, and I'm very, very happy to see that as we move forward, things are just getting better and better. Classification seems to be working, so I'm very, very optimistic in terms of where we're going with this. As we look to move forward with the compliance and participation, and ultimately what this is all about is economic inclusion and economic prosperity for the residents of our city. That's really what it's all about. And the challenge is how do we get there? How do we, create these opportunities for people here that live here to participate in these projects and develop their opportunities that come along. So it requires, a lot of engaging, with the public and the private sector at large, and looking at what with the city to navigate and pull these forces together to really make a difference. So with that, we are making some progress to make it happen. And one of the things, just to sort of give you a picture of how this piece is starting to come together, if you recall back in the early part of the year, back in June, we had the networking reception where we saw some finance firms introducing to the city and opportunities that we had at the time, all of those types of things. So out of that has come, when we created relationships where firms have come together, they've gone into like partnerships, for example, prime contract, and started developing and cultivating opportunities in themselves. So specifically, we have, a couple of small firms that have recently started operations. Even though it's like 2 or 3 people hired here and there, it's a very, very positive mode to, to move forward. So my personal goal is, if we can, some point over the course of the year, cultivate and develop 10 small firms, let's say construction firms, we can support and bring them along. We're starting outreach and training component now that sort of goes along hand in hand with this, where we have an event coming up on November 28th, where we're working with partnerships with the AJC Association of Contract, Eastern Contract Association, and that's so they're coming in, and the workshop talking about performing work, public work. So you get into, how do you bid on public work, what the bidding process looks like, contract documents, labor laws, and, all those type of things as a start to start that dialogue. And I'm also going to be doing a presentation myself on Section 3, and, specifically what is what is the Section 3 law, who will benefit, why should you participate, all those type of things. That's going to be in 28 from 3 to 6. And it's going to be over at the Electric City Innovation Center. And after that, it's going to be a network reception sponsored by Chase, Turner, and the other companies going to sponsor that. Again, it's going to meet and greet type of scenario, we start to build, these types of relationships. But more specifically, what I'm trying to do with this is really sort of set the table so that each month we're doing something to promote, grow, and cultivate, develop the business. So my thought is, if we took a single contract, let's say you got a guy that does drywall or painting or whatever the case may be. The typical scenario is, this person doing all the work themselves, they work 7 at night, they come in, try to estimate that paperwork, payroll, all that kind of stuff. Theoretically, they have all kind of problems. So what I'm trying to do is, over the series of the year, is to convince this person that you can't do it all alone. I'm trying to teach them that, you need to hire an estimator for them. You might need to hire the back office person to help pay. They may need to look at, superintendent or something along those lines. So in theory, if I had like one contractor, up on that scenario, now you've created 3 jobs, that we've created. And number 2, you've also created an opportunity for this company to grow and prosperity, and be more competitive, within the region. So that's kind of like the gist behind it all. So very, very happy about, about that. The other part that sort of goes along with that is the workforce development. There's a lot of conversation about do we have enough competence and trained people in the workforce to do jobs and supplies, labor, and all that. So we're looking at how we can, just get some basic training in place. And I'm looking at some partners where we can start doing training and, more specifically toward the trade. So you talk about carpentry, electrician, labor, all those kind of things. So a real structured kind of training program to really make a difference. So therefore, you create the contractors that's going to hire these folks on the one hand, and then on the other hand, you're doing the training, Section 3 training, to sort of collaboratively, bring that together. In cooperation with, that work with the housing authority, with them, all local non-profit agencies, like Better Neighborhoods, for example. Had several meetings with them to talk about how we collaborate, work in partnerships, bringing, contractors together, to really make a serious difference. So we're trying to, bring this thing, full circle. So that's really what it's all about, and taking advantage of, the momentum that we're starting to build. So I'm enormously happy and proud of, that type of collaboration and the efforts. And I think what's making it work is, as we look at the city, and specifically what we're trying to do with the CDBG funds and the federal and the state requirements and all that, now we're starting to have something with some teeth to really make a difference. And we don't have to get into dogfight with contracts, so the conversation becomes simple now. And I think, Curtis and Tony from Finance can tell you that if we're not in compliance, our reimbursements are coming at jeopardy. So now, all I got to do is just simply say we're not going to sign off on the thing, and all of a sudden the paperwork starts flowing. I mean, some folks, they'll pile 3 months onto you at one time. But at least we're starting to get it, realize that we're serious, and we really want to work with them. Because again, the bottom line is, all we want to do is create opportunities for the community. So if you look at this thing, public, private sector work together, I think, we can very, very, be proud that, we can make a difference.
First of all, Mr. Gardner, thank you for the work that you're doing. I commend you for just really getting out there and really moving some things forward. At the last, during your last report, I asked that we see a breakdown between the minority and the women business, breakdown that 12%, so that we can see where we really need to maybe work a little bit harder to see whether, if we're meeting the women and not the minority or vice versa. So if we could just in the future see that breakdown, so we have a better.
Absolutely.
And you mentioned a little bit about the workforce development. So how, if at all, can we work with that in terms of apprenticeship programs or apprenticeship through our various contractors that we work with?
Well, there's a couple of things that can be done in that area. The fact that we have the PLA agreements on most of the contracting opportunities out there, program, it makes it impossible to create a new entity that can provide, certified apprenticeship training. So we have to work with the trades. We got to work with carpenters, labor, all types. But there's also a new organization coming into the fold that wants to come into Schenectady. It also has the same criteria. So that's going to give us some more resources to work with to bring forth, that type of training. But to do that and really make a difference, we have to work with those existing organizations. And we got to hold them, really accountable. I mean, you spend a lot of time talking about, the right thing to do, and laws are, requirements are, and all those kind of things. But theoretically, there's still a huge disparity in there when you're talking about minorities and, even on a gender basis. There's just a huge disparity, there. So we need to look at it and take it, as seriously, as it is, and if we will seriously, make a difference in that regard. But in order to deal with that, that's the path. So we have to hold these folks, accountable to make a difference. That's really where it starts.
Any other questions? Mr. Kosher?
Just one. It says that you now have the tracking database.
Yeah.
Is there any way you can give us a report on that? How long have you had it, since the summer, or?
No, we started like in September.
Oh, this year? All right, so I'm gonna wait for if you can include that in your next report. No, I don't need it now, but
Absolutely. What we're trying to track
it's a good idea.
We were interested in looking at the position that we have and what applicants were coming from.
Right.
And, that type of thing.
I think it's a great idea.
Again, we're looking at the disparity and how it impacts us and all that kind of stuff. Again, you look at the grand scheme of things, the reality is the city as a whole, doesn't really do a lot of, like building, for example. You got your private sector, you got the electric places, you got the colleges, the city really does a lot of
Right, ourselves.
But the perception is, in the community, if you go from Hamilton Hill or anywhere else, they think that the city got all this money doing all this construction. So it sort of puts us in a challenging scenario, to have that conversation, and be more specific. If I got, if I look at, the hill up here where the Joseph Allen project is, and where the Craig projects are going on, if I'm looking at young men and women that live in that community, let's say the population, and the unemployment is, 40%, 60%, whatever the case would be, and they sit here and they're watching folks across the street who's doing work, it's hard to explain it. So, we got to do more to, get them engaged and understand how, that process works. And, and also when you're talking about jobs, as I go around to the community organizations, I'm talking about just about every position in the city is civil service. So it requires an exam. For example, like the police and the fire department, when somebody wants a job, they want to go to the police and fire department, think they're going to get hired like in 2 weeks. But that's really a year-long process. There's prerequisites to go along with it, there's preparation, there's other things you got to have just before you can sit for the exam. So we're trying to encourage folks to look at that. If you want to be a fireman, for example, let's talk about what you need to do. And those are some of the things that I'm trying to like with career development center area. As we go around to the community. So just having a, keeping it real type of, conversation and, and making it happen. But I think as we move forward and we get more and more aggressive and diligent with contractors, letting them operate the whole, these contractors more accountable to what their needs are going to be. They, as we meet, move forward, we'll meet the city, as a whole, meeting this body here, instead of to say, okay, if you're not in compliance or you're historically, not in compliance, we should rethink about, certain things, like the contract and say, contract. And also, we need to also consider some more creative ways of, working with groups that are historically trying to go from, trying to cultivate, business still, capacity, so.
Very good.
Ms. Peraza?
I just want to commend your work because these numbers are changing and some of them really significant, and that's a good thing. So, forward we go, right? Sounds like, it's just, you have a good holistic approach and it's working. All good.
Just one other thing, under the community outreach, you indicate a lot about the churches that you've been to in the different workshops. For me, it would be helpful to just have the numbers of people, so we know how many people we're touching and how many people, are attending, and just so after we see how many people are actually attending, what our outcomes are, and, we need some specific data. So if you just kind of include those numbers in that, and actually, for what we've done so far, if you could just provide that information, like for the various workshops that you have here, what we've done, that would be helpful. But, and I have to, as Ms. Peraza said, it's certainly, we're seeing a lot of improvement. So thank you for your work. Other questions, comments?
Nope.
Thank you, Mr. Gardner.
Thank you.
Okay, the last final item on the health and recreation agenda is disc golf in Simons Park. All right, we've been having this ongoing discussion since, we're going to say June or July. And essentially, we've had discussions with Goose Hill Neighborhood Association. The Recreation Advisory Commission is certainly in support of this. And what they would like to see happen is to actually have disc golf. I don't even know a disc golf set up in Steinman's Park. One of the major concerns when we talked to Mr. Wallen was that this was not something that was included in the master plan. And so that's why it has to come here to the council, because it wasn't initially in the master plan. One of the things in discussing it with Mr. Hoffman is that the way it currently is, if for some reason things need to move, it's the way disc golf is. It's very easy that you can move the what do you call it? It's not the hole, because that's regular golf, but the baskets. You can easily move the baskets if they had to reconfigure it because of the things that are included in the master plan. So at this point, there's been a lot of discussion, and apparently never got to the place where it actually came to the council, so we could say, yes, that we would it's really just not including it in the master plan, but because it's not in the master plan, just to prove it at the council level, that we go ahead and pass the resolutions for them to put a disc golf in Simons Park. So that's why this is on the agenda today. Are there questions about that, Mr. Kosher?
Several. So how would this Yates project be affected by this? Because I know both Kilburn Park and Steinman's Park were included in that project. And second of all, I think we should have Mr. Hoffman come to the meeting, because there's a whole course design, course layout. I mean, there's some very big expenses there, upfront expenses before you put the course down. Besides the equipment, the baskets and that are very simple, but when they did the course at Central Park, they actually had a gentleman come from Massachusetts. They did aerial footage, and they actually did it all for free for them, but it was quite a project, laying the groundwork of exactly where these baskets were going to be located and so on and so forth. But and I really have concerns with the Yates project as well, being so close, because I know it was on the map and they had shown some of it very close to both parks. I don't know, I mean,
I can't,
those are my two
I'm not,
concerns.
all right. Well, we can, first of all, Mr. Hoffman has said he is willing to come, and they have supplied a map of what this was, I can forward that to you, but also Ed has him to come in 2 weeks. I'm not sure that I understand what the impact would be in terms of the Yates project, in terms of Simon's Park, though. I don't see how there would be any impact whatsoever. But,
It was on the plans that we're looking at. Not that there was gonna be any impact, but again, you know, there are close relations to where the Yates project is and in relationship to the park, obviously. Because they'd spoken, I believe, about both parks. They showed it on the layout.
absolutely.
And I don't think it's gonna be a problem. I don't, but is there funding, do we still have funding in the parks advisory?
This is, they're gonna, everything, as I understand, Mr. Hoffman, is something that they're gonna be taking care of. in terms of-
Funding for the baskets and all that?
Yeah. So we
Okay.
can have him come
I think we should, yes.
and in 2 weeks and just explain all that.
Yeah.
And obviously, it
Okay.
won't happen this year, but we need to, get a head start on it because in times past, we've done a lot of things in the parks and we've started when parks, so we're trying to make sure that we get this moving there when the time comes to get the shovel on the ground, where we've moved everything forward and then they're ready to go. So I can certainly ask Mr. Hoffman to come in 2 weeks. He said that he would.
Good.
And then we could move forward from there. Any other discussion or things you wanted to see to make sure that questions that he answered when we do invite him?
That's a good comment. I'll look at that, questions that may be posed to him.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, in 2 weeks, we'll put it back on the agenda then and ask Mr. Hoffman if he'll come.
Great.
Or a representative of his choosing. Let me just be clear, it may not be him.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
I'll be on the bench that day.
You might, whatever. You may not be able to come. So that's it.
Good.
Is there anything else to come before Health and Recreation?
Will we adjourn?
A second? All those in favor? Thank you, we are adjourned.
All right, thank you. And I will call the Committee on City Development Planning. And the first item up is the final review of the Restore New York grant application. Mr. Mayor, I believe that's you.
The application's been in, done the public hearing, I should say that the application's prepared to be submitted. This is for $2 million and with 4 sites. 267 State Street, which is the old DMV headquarters, 302 State Street, which is the Plaza Council and Corner State Erie, 10 Mill Lane, and then 148 Clinton, the proposed buildings, and would ask your favorable consideration.
Was that a fake hand or no?
No, that was,
Okay.
it's right here.
I just saw that in the corner of my eye. Any questions or concerns? Yes?
I guess at the last meeting, the council meeting, there was a speaker who asked that, I guess, I'm not sure if it was really clear what the sites were. I know it was said that the sites were chosen, but I think that needs to be clear because the speaker was saying, could we choose, could some of these sites be in other neighborhoods? So I'm not sure if everyone is clear that the sites are 100% chosen.
The sites are 100%.
Oh, I'm clear on that.
Right.
But there was a speaker that came to the public,
To the
portion
rail.
of the rail and asked that, so.
In the CFA, the Consolidated Funding Application, which is a little bit different, but those are ongoing. I don't know specifically what they were referencing, if they have another, but if they have another project that they're looking for, that may not be included in this. Then we're always willing to try and work with them to get it in the process so that they are lined up for what might be available funding, whether it's this program or other things, a broader title of the Consolidated Funding.
Well, I'll reach out to that speaker just so that they're clear that these sites are already chosen and there's not, there will not be any different sites.
Yeah, we can announce it during our public comments too, or committee reports.
Mhm.
We can announce that as well. That's okay. Do we need to vote on this? Do we need a motion from us on this?
Yes.
We do.
Resolution from the council.
Okay, so it's just you and I. Motion, Ms. Porterfield, I will second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. So now I need, the rest of these items are going to be in executive session. So I need a motion to recess our committee. A second by myself. All in favor, say aye. And then, I was just going to say, now we need a motion to go into executive session.
What did you just?
Oh, no, wait a minute. No, wait, we motioned to recess.
You motioned to recess?
Yeah, but we
No.
don't need to.
No, we wanna go-
Executive
Call it
session.
back to order and motion to go into executive.
All right, so let's just rewind the tape. Rewind the tape. All right, so let's go. All right, so we don't want the motion to recess, obviously, so we want a motion to go into executive session.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the reason I was gonna do that, are you planning on
I'll
going
do
to,
it after. I'll do it last.
you're okay, okay,
Just keep going.
all right, that's what I was trying to do,
The
okay.
If you
rest
want
of the
me
whole
here,
meeting is.
if you want me here, it's gonna go first.
So let's, yeah, that's what I'm thinking, so let's,
So go ahead and recess.
that's what I did, that's why I recessed, all right?
Okay.
All right, and Ms. Porterfield made the motion, I seconded it, and our committee is in recess, so. now
Okay,
we'll-
so I will call Finance Committee back to order and ask for a motion to go into executive session.
There you go.
Okay, I'll second. All those in
Yes.
favor? Aye.
Yeah, because I figured it was late.
Right?
Yeah, anybody here? Yes. There you go.
You owe me a pen.
Pen?